In this unit, and this is unit 3.2, we're going to study parallel lines and transversals. Here's some important concept. It says that if I have two parallel lines that are cut by a transversal, then the following are true. One is each pair of the corresponding angles are congruent. So each pair of the corresponding angles is congruent, each pair of the alternate interior angles are congruent, and each pair of the alternating exterior angles are congruent. And finally, consecutive interior angles, which is also called same side interior angles, they are supplementary. So other than this fourth one, the third one, it's all about congruency. Also, recall vertical angles are congruent by vertical angle theorem, and the definition of linear pair is that they are always supplementary, and they are supplementary and they are adjacent. So, what does this all mean? It means that according to this condition on top, if I have two parallel lines, and the way we notate parallel lines is we do that by the arrows. And then if it's cut by a transversal, it creates two groups. That would be 5, 6, 7, 8. Two groups of angles, and each group has 4. So as long as I know one angle, if this angle is given, so for example, if I say this is 115 degrees, by using all of these relationships above, I should know the angle measurements for the other 7 angles. Now, if I have a second transversal in black, and therefore I create another 8 angles, and as long as I'm told with one angle here, I can figure out the relationships and the angle measures for all the other 7 angles. So how does that work? Here's an example. I have angle 1 being 65. So let's see. If I have angle 1 and angle 3 are vertical angles, so angle 3 must be 65 degrees, right? Because it's a vertical angle to angle 1. Now, if angle 1 is 65, angle 2 must be 180 minus 65, which should give me 115, and that's because they are a linear pair. Angle 2 is linear pair with angle 1, right? So you can keep going. I'm not going to list all the reasons, but you should in your paper. And if you have 2, 2 and 4 are vertical angles. So 4 is 115 degrees. Now, also pay attention, if I have 1, look at the relationship between angle 1 and angle 5. They're both above their respective parallel lines, and they're on the same side, on the left side of the transversal. They're called corresponding angles, and they are congruent. So angle 1 is 65, angle 5 must be 65 because it's corresponding angles with angle 1. Angle 5 is 65, angle 7 must be 65 again because that's vertical angles, right? And then 5 and 6 are a linear pair, or another way to look at it is that 2 and 6 are corresponding angles. They must be congruent. So I can write corresponding angles with angle 2. Now 8 is corresponding angles with angle 4. That's corresponding angles with angle 4, and they must be congruent. So this is a simple, relatively easier, simpler example, but it makes these relationships crystal clear of who's who. So let's look at some more complicated ones. In this case, in example 5, in example 5, notice that my parallel lines are here. So I have to look at these two parallel lines, and then I have two transversals. So let's focus on this group at the bottom. What do I know? I'm told of angle 7 being 38 and angle 10 being 102. So let's focus on angle 7 and all these angles at the bottom here. So 7 is 38. Number 5, angle 5 must be 38 because they are vertical angles. Angle 7 and 15 are corresponding angles. So 15 is 38. And if 15 is 38, 13 must be 38 because that is vertical angles with 15, right? So next, let's go back to number 7. If 7 is 38, angle 8 must be 180 minus 38. 180 minus 38 is about 142, I believe. And if angle 8 is 142, angle 6 is a vertical angle with angle 8. So they must be congruent. If I know angle 6, I must know angle 14 because they are corresponding angles. And if I know angle 14, I must know angle 16 because they are congruent, they are vertical angles, right? So, so I have found all the 8 angles in the bottom half. Now, let's find the top half. Same method. I know 10 is 102. 12 must be 102 because they are vertical angles. And if 12 is 102, number 4, angle 4 must be 102 because they are corresponding angles, right? And if 10 is 102, 2 is 102 as well because they are corresponding angles. Or you can say 2 and 4 are vertical angles, and obviously 2 and 4 are congruent right here. So if I have 2 as 102, 1 and 2 are supplementary. So 100 minus 180 minus 102 is 78 degrees. If 1 is 78, 3 is vertical angle with 1, so it's 78. 9 is corresponding angle with angle 1, so 9 is 78. 11 is vertical angle with 9 or corresponding angle with 3. Either way gets you the answer of 78. Okay, so again, all it is that you identify the 2 parallel lines and 1 transversal and work in that group of 8 before you move on to the next one. So in example number 6, we have two parallel lines here and we have 3 transversals. So how do we do this? First, let's find out what's given. Angle 2, measure of angle 2 is given, angle 5 is given, and angle 10 is given. So with that, let's see what do we know first. Angle 5 and let's see, I think the easiest may be angle 7 and angle 10. If you can tell, angle 7 and angle 10 are corresponding angles. They're both under the parallel lines, so they must be congruent. 10 is 109, 7 has to be 109. If 7 is 109, 7 and 6 are supplementary, so this one must be 71 degrees because 6 and 7 have to add up to 180, right? And let's see, what else do we know? Also, if you, I'm going to change the color. If you look at angle 2 here in this transversal, angle 2 and angle 9 are what's called alternate interior angle. It's a little bit challenging when it's sliced that way, but if you look carefully, 2 and 9 are on different sides of this transversal in the middle, and the other side is the parallel line. So they are alternating interior angles, and angle 2 is 41, so angle 9 has to be 41 degrees. And let's see, if what else do we have? We have 5 is here, so 4 has to be 180 minus angle 5. So 180 minus 94 is 86 degrees. So this one is 86. If angle 4 is 86, angle 1 and angle 4 are corresponding angles. They must be 86 degrees, right? So finally, for 3 and 8, let's see, is there an easy relationship? Probably not in the 4 groups of angles we just learned. However, we can look at this triangle here. The interior angles in the triangle adds up to 180. So to find out what angle 3 is worth, we just need to subtract angle 4 here, which is 86 degrees, then subtract angle 9 there, which is 41 degrees. So if we do that, I think 180 minus 86 is 94. 94 minus 41 is 53 degrees. So angle 8 is 53 degrees, right? Angle 3 is the same calculation, so it's 180 minus angle 1, so it's 180 minus angle 1, which is 86, minus angle 2. Angle 2 is 41. So you should also arrive at the same conclusion that it is at 53 degrees. All right? So again, the information you have used is the 4 groups of angles, 4 pairs, corresponding angle, alternate interior, alternate exterior, and same side interiors. The last one is supplementary. The previous 3 are congruent. And you often see linear pair as well as vertical angles. In the last one, we also added that the 3 interior angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So I'm only going to do one problem here. These are the same, but they have a little bit of algebra in it. So you're asked to solve for x, and x is here. What you need to use, though, is these 2 angles are congruent because they are corresponding angles, because we're told line L and line M are parallel. So therefore, the relationship here is established by 5x minus 2 equals 58, because both of them are measured to 58 degrees. So if you do your algebra right, x should equal 12. Okay? Over here, the setup is, if this part is 16x plus 22, this one, the vertical angle here, must be the same. And if that's 16x plus 22, that part should be the same as 134, because this is corresponding angles. So the setup is like this, and I won't solve it. You can solve it. Answer key is all online. I just want to remind you that it's perfectly fine to pause the video, finish the rest of the packet before you move on. Okay? So now let's try to solve this one. How do I do this one? So it looks to me I can do these 2. They're same side interior. They should be supplementary. But that doesn't quite help me because I have 2 variables. It's easier if I do this one and this one and leave this one alone. So leave the one with a y alone. So if I just look at the one with the x terms, it's this angle and this angle. Luckily, I know these 2 lines are parallel, and therefore these alternate interior angles are congruent. So the setup is right here. Then you minus 6x on both sides. I should have 2x minus 31 equals 3. And if I plus 31 on both sides, I should have x equals 17 in the end. Okay, so that's my answer right there. Final answer. So now that you know what x is, let's see if I can do what y is. Well, one way to do it, there are several ways of doing it. one way to do it is to plug the x back in there. Then you find out this angle. So it will be 8 times 17 minus 31 gives me this angle on the left here, right? But that angle plus 5y plus 35 should equal 180 because the two angles are, what do we call them? Linear. They're a linear pair. So that's what helps you there. So I'm trying to see if I have the answer key here. I may not have the answer key here. But if you do your algebra right, they should, it should not be too hard to solve. Actually, I think I do. Number 9. No, I have a different problem on my answer key. I apologize. But that's the way to solve this problem. Okay? So just use your calculator and figure this out. Now I want to show you how to set up 10. So in 10, I've got the angle here. I've got these two angles. Oh, this is not too bad, actually. If you look at these two angles, they only have x terms together, and these two angles obviously are a linear pair. So all you need to do is 29x minus 3. That's the first angle. Then you add the second angle, which is 15x plus 7 equals 180. Now if you take the parentheses out, you would have that's 44x plus 4 equals 180, and then you should have 44x equals 176, right? So I'm sure you can use your calculator, but I recognize it. I like to do mental math. So if I recognize there are multiples of 11. So on the left hand side I should have 4x. On the right hand side I should have 16. So finally my x equals 4. That's my final answer for x. Once I have x, I can simply, I would plug x into 29x, which is 29.4 minus 3, which gives me the angle measure for this angle on top, right there. And notice that angle and this angle here are alternate exterior. They must be congruent. And that's the setup for my second equation. And I'm not going to do it, but this is how you solve for y. These two problems are probably the most challenging of them all. And I don't have the answer key in front of me. Isn't that terrible? Let's see if I have 9 and 10 here. I don't. For some reason, my answer key doesn't include 9 and 10, but that's all right. So let's look at these two, 15 and 16. So what's the setup here on the 15 on the left here? What do I know? I know this angle. I know this is 39. And if I know this angle is 39, this angle here must be 39 degrees because they're vertical angles, right? I also know if this is 7x minus 44, this angle here and this angle on top are alternating exterior angles. They must be congruent. So I like that a lot because there's only one variable. I have an equal relationship now. So I can easily find out my x equals 16. That's how I solve for x. So once I find out that, how do I do y? What's the setup for y? So y, I think if, let's see, how do I do that? If that's, so probably the easiest way to do y is here. If I'm going to use a different color. If this is 8y minus 43, that means this angle, the vertical angle, is also 8y minus 43, right? That's how many degrees I have for that. Now notice this angle that measures 39 and this red one that I just did, they are same side interior. Therefore, if I add them together, 8y minus 43 plus 39, because they're supplementary, they should add up to 180 degrees. So that gives me what? 8y minus 43 if I minus 39, actually it's easier if I just do minus 43 plus 39, that gives me minus 4, and then that should give me 184 on the other side. So y is 23. That's my final answer there. Okay, I don't have the answer key in front of me, so make sure you do it your way and see if it matches my answers. If we match, that's perfect. Last one. It looks a little bit dizzying, but if you follow the angle relations we've been talking about, you are going to be fine. So the setup here, sometimes it's easier if you just turn the paper around and look at these two parallel lines and this transverse. So if you don't look at any other things, you notice that these two I just put one tick mark on. They are congruent because they are alternating exterior angle. So a quick calculation gives me x equals 9. Okay, and then let's look at y. What do I have y? Okay, I see. So if I have this is y, probably if I use this triangle inside, I know one angle that's 28. I don't know this angle, but I can, because I find x, I can find out this angle, and this is the vertical angle. So why don't we do that? So 12x plus 1, which becomes this angle as well, plus 4y minus 9 plus 28 should equal 180 degrees. Okay, I'm going to erase all of this and use a little highlighter to tell you I have 12x plus 1, which is here as well as here, because they're vertical angles. I have this angle, which is 4y minus 9. I have the third angle, which is 28 degrees. So that's how I added all of these together. Now my x is 9, so it's 12, it's 12 times 9, which is 108. 108 plus 1, which is 109, plus 4y minus 9 plus 28 equals 180. If I do a quick calculation, that is 100, so it's 4y plus 128 equals 180. And then 4y equals 52. My final answer is y is 13. Okay, so this concludes 3.2. As you can tell, it doesn't matter how many transversals I gave you. You just follow the same 4 groups, plus linear pair, plus vertical angle, probably plus some definition of the theorem that the interior angles of a triangle adds up to 180. Then you're all set. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.